Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, locked room mysteries and creepy slashers. It's my weekly wrap-up. So it's been a less productive than usual reading week for me. I've only finished 3 books this week, which is quite low for me. It's been a super busy week at work, and I have got some quite long books on the go. So I'm reading a few different things at the moment. I used to always try and read like only one book at a time, and I've fallen out of that habit. And I am convinced that that is a good habit to have if you want to be really focused about your reading and, really enjoy books and get through books quite quickly. But at the moment I'm juggling a number of different books, which is working for me, but it has meant that I haven't managed to get through as many books this week as I normally do. One of the books I'm juggling at the moment is a book that isn't even published yet. That is the Garbology, so the Garb August anthology. So I have been continuing to read through submissions for that. As noted in previous videos, we've had over 60 submissions for that, so there's a lot of stories to read. And Troy, the publisher, and I are reading through all of those stories at the moment to come up with our kind of final shortlist for what will make it into the anthology, which will be published in August. So I've read over half of the stories now and continuing to have a really good time. There's been some wonderful stories in there, and it's just really interesting to see what ideas people have come up with and how they've committed those to paper. So really, really enjoying that. Right, in terms of the things I've actually finished this week then, so finished The Greatest Enemy by Douglas Reeman, which is a book I read for the Kindle Kobo Clean Out event. So the prompt for this one was a new to you author. So Douglas Reeman, or Alexander Kent, as he was also known, was a British author of like naval adventure type fiction. This I think is probably one of his later books. So came out, I think, in the early 70s, set in 1970, about a British warship patrolling around Thailand and going up against various like a terrorist group out there. But what was really interesting about it is with that synopsis, you'd expect it to be quite a kind of gung-ho kind of a book. And to an extent it was. There was quite a bit of action in it. And it was, the action was enjoyable. That's how Reeman/Kent, made his money by writing engaging adventure stories about boats, basically. So the kind of naval action in it was really well handled. But what really made it interesting was the characters. So a large part of the book is about a kind of the relationship between the captain of the ship and the first officer, both of whom have got kind of problems going on in their private lives, and are, dealing with and processing various things. So the relationship between the two of them was really interesting, was what made the book as good as it was. So I enjoyed that. Overall, I think I only gave it 3 stars. It did lose me a little bit in the middle. I felt like it was a bit longer than it needed to be. But it certainly had interesting characters and decent action. So a fun, interesting thriller. After that, then, I read something very different. So I read No Sanctuary by Richard Laymon. So I read this for the Year of Laymon that Kelsey from Slime and Slashes is doing. So I've spoken about Richard Laymon on the channel before. I have a difficult relationship with Richard Laymon. So if you don't know, so Laymon was an American author of like trashy horror fiction in particularly like the kind of later 70s and the 80s in particular, and was someone who ended up being more popular in the UK than he was in the US. So I, as a teenager and into my early 20s, read loads of Richard Laymon books. I remember a newsagent that I used to cycle past on my way home from a job I had in my gap year between school and uni. They always had loads of Richard Laymon books, and quite often I'd stop there and pick one up on my way home. So I can't remember if I'd read this one before. I don't think I had, although interestingly it had a bookmark in it from a cafe that I used to go to in Suffolk. So I think maybe I'd got part way through it and DNF'd it. Anyway, I finished it this time. And it was okay. So in common with some other books I've read by Laymon, it has 2 completely separate stories that run parallel to each other and kind of clumsily come together at the end, like right at the very end they come together. So in this one of the stories is about this woman who basically gets her kicks by breaking into people's houses and just living there for a while they're on holiday. And one of the houses she breaks into belongs to someone who it fairly quickly becomes apparent is like extremely dodgy. So that was one of the storylines, and that was probably the storyline I like more. The other one is around a couple who go camping and meet up. That like they meet these kind of creepy guys while they're out camping, and there's like more stuff going on as well. There's a very creepy kind of ending to that story. So yeah, these two stories, as I said, very clumsily come together at the end. It's got Richard Laymon's usual obsession with sex and particularly like the female anatomy. It was reasonably suspenseful at times, and it was kind of a fun, light, entertaining horror read. But I definitely wouldn't leap to recommend it. Definitely not Laymon's best. Right, and then I also finished. So I did a buddy read with one of my patrons, Randy Ray, the host of the channel, The Literate Texan, which is well worth checking out. So reread a modern like homage to like golden age locked room mysteries. So a book that came out really recently, I think in the last couple of years, called Death and the Conjurer by an author called Tom Mead, which is going to be the first in a series. And this was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. So a very playful mystery novel with at its centre, so the detective at its centre are a police detective and a guy who's like a stage magician who kind of team up to solve these mysteries. So the main mystery is the murder of a psychiatrist, but there's a couple of other mysteries as well, and all three of these mysteries involve a locked room. So really entertaining. I love locked room mysteries, and Tom Mead did a great job of being like referring to other mysteries, like other famous mysteries and famous authors of locked room mysteries. So the Conjurer character, the stage magician, is like really well read about locked room mysteries, and there's a bit where he like lays out all the different types of locked room mystery and tries to figure out which one it is that they're trying to solve. So it's just a really fun book, really good mystery, engaging characters, just entertaining, just pure mystery entertainment. And there's something I really like about that kind of puzzle style of detective fiction, rather than the kind of like nasty, gritty, depressing detective fiction which seems to be so popular nowadays. Sometimes it's really fun just to read a playful, enjoyable mystery, and Death and the Conjurer was definitely that. So those are the three books I've finished. In terms of things I'm currently reading then, so I'm doing another buddy read, this time with my patron Leanna, of The Melting by Lize Spit, which is a Dutch novel, which is really interesting. So not the kind of thing I necessarily usually enjoy, in that it's kind of literary fiction. This is one that was recommended to me by viewers as a disturbing book I should read from my Disturbing Books project, and I can see why. It definitely is disturbing. I'm about 3/4 of the way through, so I'm not going to talk too much about it because I want to wait until I finished it to give my kind of final analysis of it, and we'll probably do a review video of it. But basically it's about these three teenage kids in this small town getting up to all sorts of no good. So an interesting read. And then also reading or listening to The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee, which I'd started before last week's video, so it's a really long book. It's like 750 pages. This one also quite long for me. This is 400 pages. So yeah, Forgetting Moon, 750 page, like fantasy epic. Don't normally like fantasy, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm really having a good time with it. Really good characters, loads of intrigue, loads of action. So just thoroughly enjoying that. I will probably, at some point, I think I will definitely read the following two books in the trilogy. So in terms of channel stuff then, in the last week you've had a review of the book Tamper by Alyssa Nutting, which is another book I read for my Disturbing Books project. I did a video about how to use Discord, which people had asked me to do, so giving some tips on like how to navigate Discord servers and things like that. And as always, there's a link to my Discord server in the description for this video should you want to join and chat books. I also did my worst books of 2023, which was a really successful video. I think it was more successful than any of my best of 2023 videos. And then I did a video about book bans. So asking the question, is it ever okay to ban a book, and suggesting a particular scenario where people seem to be, less concerned about books getting banned. So that's what you've had in the last week. In the week ahead, I'm going to do a list of 10 crime writers I definitely want to read, either read at all or read more of. So 5 who I've never read and 5 that I have read but not read enough of. I'm going to do a New Year book tag video, so a series of questions about my plans for 2024 basically. I will do a review video probably of The Melting if I finish it, and I'm also going to do a video about Brandon Sanderson, the hugely popular fantasy author, asking whether or not I should read Brandon Sanderson. So yeah, that's what you will get in the week ahead. So hope you found this interesting. Do let me know in the comments what you've been reading this week. Let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.